Good afternoon. It's Tom Johnson along with Alex Rounaghi, our mayor. Good afternoon, Alex.
Hey Tom, how's it going?
Well, I am, to be honest, I'm sitting here in my car. It's raining outside. I got wet walking in and out of the coffee shop I was just in a meeting at. So life has been better, but it's okay. How you doing?
It sounds like a good set of problems to have
When you compare the
in the grand
problems to
scheme
other
of things.
people worldwide,
Yes.
they aren't bad.
Yeah. For me, things are going well. We had a relatively short council meeting last night that was productive, and
Good.
yeah, so things are good.
Let's talk about a couple of things. What kind of feedback since the last time we talked about the presentation of the promenade,
Yep.
the plan. What kind of feedback have you been getting?
Mostly positive feedback. We've gotten some emails from people who are opposed to the promenade, but overall, there has been a lot of very positive feedback from residents in the community, and a lot of residents. Um, the idea of bringing cars back to that street is almost like unfathomable to them. That's the feedback I hear, and I think people are happy with what the direction that the promenade's going. So I think people are excited.
So take me through on the complaints you've gotten against it. What are the complaints? And
I think a lot.
without getting specific, who are they from? I mean, are they from people you'd expect, or are they business owners, or who is it?
I think there are a few business owners who have the viewpoint that because people can't pull up and park on Forest and go into the business, that's hurting their business. And I understand their perspective. There's a lot of other business owners who feel that based on the data, this has helped their business. There are residents who I think have just sort of see that as our main street, and they see cars as integral to what makes Forest Avenue Forest Avenue. And so their perspective is that they want things to be the same. And again, I understand their perspective. I
Okay.
feel differently. Disagreements are what make life interesting. So that those are kind of the two main viewpoints that I've heard is one based on the tradition of Forest Avenue as a street with cars, and then from a couple of business owners. But what's interesting, and Roger Kempler brought this up during the meeting, was James Dilley, who is the founder of who had a bookstore and was a legend in town and the founder of the Greenbelt. Essentially, he was all about a walkable community and so in many respects, this is the implementation of that vision of
Yeah.
moving towards a walkable community where people can gather and have community space as opposed to being, in their cars.
So I have to tell you, Saturday I decided to go around with the Be Well folks in Laguna Beach, and I'm going to get back to the promenade. But we walked down and we checked out things on Main Beach, and we went around to a couple other places. I have to tell you, when we came around and we crossed the street and we got into the promenade, it's so inviting, and it's to me, it is, it's such an attractive place to look around and see, families gathered, tourists
Yep,
gathered, and friends gathered, and people are still walking around doing their shopping and things like that. So I'm still excited about seeing it go into the direction that it's heading right now. But I think what makes you great is you're a person that has compassion and understanding on all sides, and I think that's important and good for you to do that.
that's always the goal.
So let's jump over to something else. So
Okay.
another issue. Obviously, we're not going to have any fires with this rain coming down and things like that. But one of the things we have to do is we still have to continue and not forget about what kind of fire danger we had, less than a month ago.
Yep.
Um, and one of those things is the undergrounding in the canyon. Any progress, or what can we expect next there?
The next step is to figure out whether we've won the TUG grant, which is for targeted undergrounding through the California Public Utilities Commission. And um, it's unclear when we're going to find out about that. And but Edison, I believe, has included us as a project that would be eligible for it. But it's a question of how much the commission's willing to let them raise their rates, and it's also unclear where in the prioritization we are
Okay.
for Edison. So our goal is to get that money. We're also, Bob Whalen and Mark Orgill are part of an ad hoc committee to look at revenue opportunities. Um, because ultimately, what we really need to do as a city is there's a lot, whether it's undergrounding or our fire stations, whether it's there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be addressed in town, and so we need to also be strategic about how can we cut costs, how can we strategically ensure that we're not wasting money. I'll give you an example of that. I brought in this company called Procure America. It's actually Supervisor Lisa Bartlett now works there, and they worked in the county, and so that's sort of how I know about them. And what they do is they come into a city and they look at ways to save money, and they were able to find $30,000 in annual savings by looking at our bills from SDG&E and Edison, and they were able to negotiate some of them and make sure that we were paying the proper rates on others. That's 30 grand a year. That'll be, annually. So over
Nice.
10 years, that's $300,000. And so even though it's a small amount of money, we have to have that kind of thinking where we're valuing every dollar and
Absolutely.
looking at cutting expenses wherever possible and being smarter about our procurement and all of our expenses, and then also looking at revenues. So I think hopefully we can get some money from. We're also applying for a lot of federal grants. There's a lot of unknowns right there right now with the new administration, and it's unclear how changes there could affect our eligibility for some of these grants. So we will see, but we are, I think, but the key is that we need to figure out a way to get this done. So because I
Well,
think undergrounding could not be more important.
okay. Let's jump over to another little topic, and I think initially it falls under the expense category.
Yeah.
It might be over the long term. It might be a revenue generator back because you say, or not revenue generator, but you might save cost. But that's electrification
Yep.
of the city vehicles and things like that. So you initially have to outlay, a bunch of money to get these things in. But then, how soon does that pay itself back and things like that? Where are we with that whole project?
Yeah, so we got an update yesterday on that project from our public works department and the consultant who's been working with them on this. The feedback was essentially that over a 5-year period, we would spend a little bit, it would be a net loss in terms of the cost to do it. But then over a 15-year period, it'd be a net gain.
Okay.
The one of the reasons why there was a net loss in the first 5 years was because the current plan contemplates buying electric trolleys, and there's currently only one manufacturer of electric trolleys. So my feedback was let's look at how the finances would change if we leased trolleys instead of bought them, and see if there's a way, as the market grows and there's more companies that have that type of product,
Sure.
because ultimately I think that our fleet electrification initiative it advances our goals of environmental sustainability, but at the end of the day, it's gonna lead to lower costs, which is what we always should be striving towards. So I think we should see that coming back to us ahead of the budget adoption, and we'll see how the numbers work out.
You said earlier last night you had a kind of a short council meeting and everything. Does it feel good these days sitting on that dais with the people, and you feel like there's good camaraderie and stuff to get stuff done in Laguna Beach?
Yeah, well, what I also like about being on the dais with my colleagues is that there are a lot of disagreements. Like you saw if you watched the meeting, there were issues where we have disagreements on historical is one example. There was discussions about the pool last night where I think we ultimately are on the same page that we don't have the financial resources to build a city pool, but there was sort of a disagreement about the extent to which we should be spending time and money on planning for a pool now. So I
Right.
think what we have up there is really a free-flowing exchange of ideas, and that makes I think that leads to better decision making. Because even if you have a disagreement with someone, and you ultimately stand by the perspective that you have, I think even that process of talking through it makes the decision better, and it makes you maybe reaffirm why you think the way that you do about it. But it's always good to have an open mind and be willing to change it.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I saw you last week at the in Newport Beach at the mayor's dinner up there, and I'll see you
Yeah.
obviously at yours coming up
Yeah.
in a little while. But will I see you Friday at Sue Kemp's luncheon that
Oh
the women's
yes.
club? So
I
I'll
will
look
see
forward
you
to seeing
there.
you there.
Yeah. And thank you for the shout out at the mayor's dinner.
Oh, you know what? You're always deserving. You're doing a great job at Laguna Beach. I think people are happy with the way things are headed from the people that I talk to. Listen, I appreciate your time. I want you to stay dry,
You too,
and
Tom.
I look forward to seeing you next week.
I look forward to it.